She stood barefoot on the splintered saloon platform, her thin white dress clinging to her trembling frame. Tears cut tracks through the dust on her cheeks as rough voices barked numbers like she was a steer at market. But this wasn't a dream. It was a Tuesday in Milfield, Kansas, and 19-year-old Cordelia May was being sold to the highest bidder. Inside the Silver Dollar Saloon, the air reeked of whiskey and sweat. Silas Crowder, the owner, grinned like a jackal as he slammed his gavel. "Gentlemen," he announced, "a genuine virgin, pure as dawn. Starting bid, $50. Cordelia tried to shield herself with shaking hands. An orphan since 12, she'd survived on laundry and kitchen scraps, until Crowder trapped her with a debt she never owed, her dead father's gambling tab. "Pay up, or work it off my way," he'd sneered. Bids climbed fast, 60, 70, 85 hours. Outside, Thaddius Holloway tied his horse, planning a quick stop before heading home to his 8-year-old daughter, Minerva. A quiet widower, he'd spent 3 years trying to raise her right in a world growing crueler by the day. Then he heard the shouting and the sobs. He shoved through the batwing doors, expecting a brawl. Instead, his blood ran cold. On that platform stood a girl barely older than his own child, being auctioned like cattle while men jeered. Their eyes met. In hers, he saw raw terror and a flicker of hope. "100," came a voice. Buck Morrison, rancher, brute, and known abuser of women, stepped forward. Cordelia paled. Thaddius's heart hammered. He had 93s meant for winter food, medicine, survival. But seeing that girl's face, he knew some choices weren't about money. $200, he said, stepping into the room. Silence fell. $200 was a fortune. Crowder's eyes gleamed. "Do I hear 210? No one spoke. Buck glared, hand hovering near his colt. "You sure you want to make an enemy today, farmer?" Thaddius met his gaze. "This girl's coming home with me, but not for what you think." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Crowder slammed the gavel. "Sold to the farmer." Buck's jaw tightened. No one outbid him. No one humiliated him and walked away. As Thaddius counted out the cash, Cordelia descended the platform, bracing for the price of rescue. But Thaddius spoke gently. "You're safe now. I've got a daughter your age. You'll have food, shelter, and respect. Nothing more." For the first time in days, she breathed. Then Buck blocked the door. "Nobody spends $200 on charity. What's your angle?" "No angle. Just doing what's right," Buck spat. "Biggest mistake you'll ever make." He turned to Crowder. "Tell him about our deal. The $50 I paid last week for first rights to her." Crowder paled. The room tensed. Cordelia gripped Thaddius's arm. "Leave me. Don't die for me." But Thaddius saw it now. Buck's men had sealed every exit. They were trapped. "Two choices," Buck said, drawing his gun halfway. "Walk away, or try to leave and find out what happens." Thaddius thought of Minerva waiting at home. The smart move was clear, but sometimes right was stupid. "We're leaving together," he said, stepping in front of Cordelia. "And if you shoot an unarmed man in front of 20 witnesses, Sheriff Palmer will hang you by sundown." Buck's eyes narrowed. Then he laughed, a chilling, hollow sound. "You're right. I won't shoot you here." He holstered his gun. "But roads get dark fast out past town. Accidents happen." Thaddius understood. Buck would hunt them once they were alone. Crowder tried to mediate, offer Buck his $50 back, but Buck snarled, "I don't want money. I want what I paid for." Slowly, Thaddius guided Cordelia toward the door. The crowd parted like ghosts. At the threshold, Buck called out, "Farmer, what's your name?" "Gotta know what to carve on your marker." Thaddius paused. Giving his name risked his daughter, but silence wouldn't save them. "Thaddius Holloway, and you won't need a marker. I don't plan on dying today." Sunlight hit their faces, but freedom felt fragile. 8 miles of open prairie lay between them and safety. 8 miles where Buck ruled without law. As they neared his horse, Cordelia whispered, "There's something you don't know. 3 months ago, Buck killed a preacher's daughter who tried to run. Sheriff covered it up. Buck owns half this county." Thaddius's stomach dropped. They were marked. Then, a child's voice rang out down Main Street. "Papa! Papa!" Minerva sprinted toward them, blissfully unaware she was running straight into danger. Thaddius's breath caught as his daughter sprinted down Main Street, blonde braids flying, eyes bright with relief. Minerva had disobeyed his orders to stay with Mrs. Henderson, and now stood steps away from a powder keg. "Minerva, stop!" he called, but she was already there, panting. "Papa, Mrs. Henderson got sick. I was scared, so I came to find you." Her words died as she noticed Cordelia, the armed men, and the tension thick enough to choke on. Behind them, Buck Morrison stepped into the street, his gaze locking onto the child. A slow, vicious smile spread across his face. Well now, Farmer Holloway brought his little girl to watch the show. Ain't she sweet? Cordelia gripped Thaddius's arm. He's going to use her. Thaddius knelt, voice low. Stay behind me, sweetheart. Don't say a word. But Buck was already advancing, spurs clinking like a death knell. That's a fine daughter you got. Be a real shame if something unfortunate happened to her. All because you wouldn't walk away. The threat struck like a bullet. This wasn't just about Cordelia anymore. Minerva was now a pawn. You lay one finger on her, Thaddius began. You'll what? Buck sneered. Fight me? You're not even armed. He leaned in. Here's your last chance. Leave the girl with me. Walk away with your daughter. Everyone lives. Thaddius froze. Save Cordelia and risk Minerva. Or abandon an innocent to protect his child. Either choice would haunt him forever. Minerva tugged his coat. Papa, who is he? Cordelia knelt beside her. My name's Cordelia. Your papa's helping me, but we're in bad trouble. Minerva looked up, eyes wide and trusting, just like her mother's. Papa always helps people. Mama taught him that. Those words cut deep. Sarah had taught him to stand for the helpless, but she'd never faced a monster like Buck. Time's up, farmer, Buck growled. Choose. And in that heartbeat of silence, Thaddius saw his way out, not with a gun, but with truth. You're right, he said, voice steady. I'm not armed, but you're wrong about one thing. Buck frowned. Oh yeah? What's that? This isn't just between us. Thaddius swept his arm toward the street. Look around. Dozens had gathered. Shopkeepers, mothers, laborers, all watching Buck threaten a child in broad daylight. Half this town saw you try to buy a woman like livestock, Thaddius continued. And now you're threatening an 8-year-old? Sheriff Palmer might look the other way, but Judge Crawford won't. And the territorial marshal rides through next week. Murmurs rose. Buck's swagger faltered. And one more thing, Thaddius added. Cordelia's brother rides with the Pinkertons. He'll be here soon, and he doesn't forgive men who hurt his sister. Cordelia nodded firmly. It was a lie, but Buck didn't know that, and the Pinkertons' name alone made even outlaws sweat. Buck's face twisted in fury. His control was slipping. You think you're clever? He spat. I think I'm done talking, Thaddius said. Minerva, Cordelia, get on the horse. As they moved, Buck barked. Tommy! Jake, stop them! 2 men drew iron, blocking the street. The crowd scattered. This was about to turn bloody. Then, a calm voice cut through the chaos. I wouldn't do that, if I were you. Doc Whitman stepped from his office, followed by Reverend Mills, shopkeeper Harold Chen, and 6 armed townsfolk. The doctor adjusted his spectacles and fixed Buck with a cold stare. Morrison, we've had enough of your terror in this town. These folks never hurt you, Doc Whitman said, stepping forward, rifle in hand. And we won't let you threaten a child on our street. Buck scanned the crowd, his 5 men suddenly dwarfed by a wall of armed townsfolk. The onlookers weren't just watching anymore. They'd chosen a side, and it wasn't his. This ain't over, he growled. Yes, it is, the doc replied. Ride out today, and don't come back. Buck's hand twitched toward his gun. 8 barrels stared back. He might have drawn anyway, if Silas Crowder hadn't made everything worse. Buck, Crowder called, smirking. You still owe me $300 from poker last month. Maybe it's time to settle. Then, with a cruel twist, actually, I'm transferring that debt to Holloway. Congrats, farmer, you just inherited Morrison's biggest problem. The crowd gasped. A transferred debt meant Buck could legally pursue Thaddius, and violence would follow. That's not how it works, Doc snapped. Actually, it is, said a calm voice. Judge Crawford pushed through the crowd. Debts can be assigned, but only with proof. And the debtor's consent. Crowder paled. There was no proof. The debt was a bluff. No paperwork? Crawford said. Then there's no debt. He turned to Buck. You and your men have 10 minutes to leave Milfield, or face charges for threatening a child. Buck's last card was gone. His men were already retreating to their horses. But he wasn't done. This ain't over, Holloway, he hissed. You cost me money, pride, and respect. I don't forget, and I don't forgive. Thaddius helped Cordelia and Minerva onto his horse. It is over, Buck. You lost fair and square. Fair? Buck laughed bitterly. Boy, you don't know what that word means, but you're gonna learn. As Buck rode off, Doc Whitman pulled Thaddius aside. You did right. but Morrison's the kind who waits. Stay in town a few days. Can't, Thaddius said. Animals need feeding, and running just invites more trouble. The doc pressed a small derringer into his palm. Then take this. Better than nothing. Cordelia eyed the gun with fear. Maybe we should wait. No, Thaddius said. We go now, while it's light, and while the whole town saw us leave. Fear makes you a target. As they mounted up, Minerva tugged his sleeve. Papa, the lady looks sad. Is she gonna be okay? Thaddius turned to Cordelia. Really looked at her. She was trembling, hollow-eyed, still trapped in the horror of the auction block. Are you all right? He asked gently. She shook her head. Why did you help me? Men don't. They don't help without wanting something. My wife taught me that protecting the innocent is what makes us human. You needed help. That's enough. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She sounds like she was a good woman. She was. And she'd want me to keep you safe. They rode out of Milfield as dusk settled, but none saw the lone rider watching from the ridge above. Buck had sent a scout ahead. The real danger had just begun. 40 minutes should have gotten them home. They made it halfway, into Devil's Canyon, where the road pinched between steep rock walls, when the first shot cracked the air, kicking dust near their horses' hooves. Get down! Thaddius yanked the reins, shoving them behind a boulder as bullets whined overhead. From the ridge above, Buck's voice echoed, dripping with triumph. Thought you were clever in town, didn't you, farmer? Out here there's no judge. No crowd, just you. And me. Thaddius counted muzzle flashes. 4 on the left, 2 on the right. They were trapped. What do you want, Buck? He shouted. My property back, and payment for the shame you caused. Cordelia grabbed his arm. Just give me to him. Don't let Minerva get hurt because of me. Not happening, Thaddius said, gripping the derringer. 2 shots against 6 guns. Minerva buried her face in his coat. Papa, I'm scared. I know, honey, he whispered. I know. Stay behind this rock, Thaddius whispered. Don't move, no matter what. Another burst of gunfire shredded the air. Buck was savoring this, drawing out their fear before finishing them. Then hoofbeats fast from town. Buck Morrison! Judge Crawford's voice boomed across the canyon. Drop your weapons. You're surrounded. The shooting stopped. Thaddius peeked around the boulder and couldn't believe his eyes. Doc Whitman, Reverend Mills, and 8 armed townsfolk had ridden out to back them up. You've got no authority out here, Buck shouted. I do when you threaten innocents in my town, Crawford shot back. And I'm pursuing you for disturbing the peace. 6 of Buck's men faced 9 determined townsfolk. The odds had flipped. Then, Cordelia stood, fully exposed, facing Buck's rifles. Buck, she called, voice clear and strong. I've got something to tell you about Silas Crowder. Something that changes everything. Get down, Thaddius hissed, but she kept going. You want to know why Crowder auctioned me off? He's been stealing from you for months. That poker debt? A lie, I kept his books. He skimmed 20% from every cattle deal you made, and hid the money in a false bottom of his office safe. Nearly $2,000. Silence fell like snow. Buck turned to his men. Boys, we've been shooting at the wrong people. He rode down, gun lowered. Not at them, but toward town. Crowder's been robbing me blind? Cordelia nodded. Every transaction, every sale. I can prove it. Judge Crawford kept his rifle ready. That doesn't excuse attempted murder. Just warning shots, Buck said smoothly, trying to get their attention. Thaddius knew it was a lie, but also knew Buck was looking for a way out without more bloodshed. So, we're done? Thaddius asked. Buck studied Cordelia, then nodded. Testify against Crowder and we're square. You help me recover what's mine. I forget the rest. I will, she said. Good enough? Buck wheeled his horse. Boys, let's pay Crowder a visit. As they rode off, Thaddius finally exhaled. The danger had passed, but Cordelia had just made herself a target. Judge Crawford approached. Brave move, miss, but Crowder won't take kindly to betrayal. Cordelia looked at Thaddius and Minerva and smiled. A small, fragile thing, but real. I'm not alone anymore. The ride home was quiet, peaceful. Minerva chatted about their adventure, already turning terror into legend. Cordelia watched the sunset, feeling something long buried stir inside her. Hope. Thaddius gestured to his modest farmhouse. It's not much, but it's safe, and there's always food. It's perfect, she whispered, and meant it. In the weeks that followed, Cordelia testified. Crowder was arrested, his saloon shuttered. Buck, surprisingly, kept his word, too busy reclaiming his stolen money and watching Crowder fall. On the farm, Cordelia found purpose: cooking, mending, teaching Minerva to read. Thaddius found companionship, and slowly something deeper. They never spoke of love. It grew on its own, quiet, steady, like prairie grass after rain. A year later, Reverend Mills married them in Milfield's little church. The whole town came, even Judge Crawford, who smiled and said, "Nice to see a story that began in darkness end in light." Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything, but sometimes, if you're lucky, it gives you everything you never knew you needed.